All right, so there's a viral video that went around called 8 charts that will change the way that you see dating, and everybody's reacting to it. So I'm going to hop on the bandwagon and we're going to react to it as well. Let's get into the video. 8 charts that will change the way that you see dating.
This is a chart showing how men perceive women's attractiveness. Looks pretty normal. Men tend to perceive women's attractiveness on a standard bell curve. On the scale of 1 to 5, the average is 2.83, with the...
Yeah, so we kind of knew this already, but basically what this is showing you is that guys make a decision on attractiveness based off of really one key metric. And there's not a lot of other different criteria that are taken into consideration. So that's why when you're selecting based off of one piece of criteria, and that's all you need to see, it's going to give you a more even distribution. It's going to give you a more fair average, and you're going to get more fair data points when it's just a decision based off of one thing, which you all know that guys pretty much select for mates based off of physical attractiveness. Does mental health and stuff matter? Yeah, a little bit, but really at the most part, nothing else is going to make a difference there. So it makes sense that it's a fair and honest average because men are really looking at kind of one piece of the puzzle to make a decision.
The most common rating being 3. 8% are above the 4 and 17% below a 2. All pretty normal. And here is how women perceive men. Yeah, doesn't look so good for men.
Yeah, so the reason that we see this is because the reason that there's a bias. What you're seeing here is that there is an attractiveness bias. So all that can really tell you, where most of the black pill guys are going to go completely wrong, is they're going to say, oh, women are only attracted to good-looking guys, or really attractive guys are going to be the only ones that are in relationships and getting all the women. But that's not what this is showing you. So what this is actually telling you is the bias exists because there's different criteria that gets taken into consideration. So an example of that is like, say that you're going to buy a car. So you're going to be looking at like the amount of miles that it has. You're going to see the other features and benefits, and then, maybe gas mileage, and you're going to make a decision based off of the entire thing. But if the car salesman was like, all right, man, you don't get to know anything else about the car except for the gas mileage. So then in your mind, you're going to be like, okay, if I only have one piece to pick, then I'm going to be super, super picky about that one specific thing. Like, it better have really good gas mileage, because if I know nothing else about the rest of the equation, then I'm going to be really rigorous on selection based off of that one key point. So what this actually proves, and what this is showing you, the reason that there's a bias is only because there's other factors that come into consideration.
Taking this at face value, only 1 in 6 men are above average in an absolute sense. And if we translate this plot to something more familiar, like IQ, then we have a world where women think 58% of men are brain damaged.
Yeah, exactly. So if 58% of men are ugly to women, then how come it is that 60% of women are in relationships? So what this is telling us, guys, is that physical attractiveness matters. Yeah, absolutely. But the reason that there's such a huge bias is because when you have to make a decision based on that alone, it's that's what's skewing the data. So for guys, it's very equal and even, because really we only care about one thing, and it's gas mileage. If it's got good gas mileage and that's all we're comparing everything else to, then it's going to be very fair. But the thing is here is that this proves that there's other criteria that get fit into how women make decisions about this.
We dive a little deeper though, it becomes clear this isn't a men are too ugly to date thing. It's a men are too ugly to hook up with thing. This is OkCupid, one of the biggest dating sites in the world. And this is
Who the fuck uses OkCupid?
Christian Rudder, the former CEO of the platform. In 2009, looking to promote the platform, Rudder and his team began to release data from the site, giving us an insight into what the dating market really looks like behind closed doors. In 2014, he released the book Dataclysm, summarizing much of the data revealed by the site. Within the book, Rudder displays the differences between how men and women view each other's attractiveness on the site. But when asked about it in an interview promoting the book and platform, This is what he had to say.
Tinder, those curves move even further apart. Match, they move closer together. The male curve barely moves. It's really the female curve that moves around. The men kind of have the same curve on all three sides, and it's the female curve that moves around.
When OkCupid was acquired by the Match Group in 2011, Rudder got access to the rest of the Match Group's biggest platform's data. The two biggest of which at the time, Match.com and Tinder, give us a lot of insight into what's really going on here. Although charts or data were never posted, we can estimate based on what Rudder said. This is an estimate of how women perceive men on Match.com, and this is an estimate of how women perceive men on Tinder.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see how it moves and it changes. For guys, it doesn't move or change because the way that we're looking at this is basically fixed. Attraction is attraction, and that's it, right? Because it's only one criteria that's being used for judgment. So the fact that it moves and that it shifts and that it changes based off of age and different scenarios and circumstances shows you that the whole looks, the idea behind looks is, of course, like, does it matter? Yeah. But the idea is that the significance and importance of it varies and it changes. So that tells you even further that it's being weighted and it's being balanced against other criteria.
We can see that for women, as the dating site becomes more casual in nature, the standards climb. Although people like to push the narrative that women are delusional and have too high standards, the data seems to say the relatively high standards are only for casual intimacy, which when you consider the additional risks women take on with intimacy, the relatively high standards seem reasonable. Essentially, women are thinking, if I'm going to take the risk of a casual hookup, you better be attractive. The next question is,
or he better have a whole bunch of other characteristics, but it's not possible for her to know that in a flash judgment situation. So she can't assess all of the other characteristics that she's screening for from just a dating profile. She can't really even do all of that in a couple minute interaction, cold approach. So really what this is telling you is that you want to be avoiding flash judgment situations as much as possible. For example, cold approaching and dating apps. It's not to say that it doesn't work for some guys. It does the more attractive you are, right? But it also doesn't mean that dating that same girl isn't possible if you were to be in a situation where she's seeing you in a different light. Because again, what we're seeing here is that based off of looks alone, the odds are stacked against you.
Then, what makes someone attractive? To answer this question, I'd like to bring forward a study from 2016, looking at what women look for in a speed dating context. The study started by giving women a list of 6 traits and asking them to assign points to each trait based on how important it was to them. The average distribution of points the women provided looked like this. All attributes given near even value. After completing the dates, the women were asked to assign the points to the men at the dating event. Then, which men they were going to see again. This is the chart displaying the actual distribution of what was seen as important by the women at the event. Physical attractiveness was by far the most important attribute, with the amount of positive was by far.
Yeah, so all right, here's the thing is before the speed dating event, which by the way, who the fuck does those? Before the speed dating event, women said that they want a whole bunch of different characteristics, which actually is true. Then when they got placed into another flash judgment scenario, she said, okay, based off of just that, if I have to pick, it's going to be mostly physical attractiveness. So again, it's because it's a speed dating, a flash judgment situation. Anytime that you're making a woman decide, pick now or forever hold your peace, they're just going to hedge their best bet with the physically attractive guy. But that's not always necessarily the best option for her long term. But she doesn't know that. She doesn't have enough information. So it's interesting how even in that short amount of time, the second one was fun. So what have I been telling you guys about your lifestyle and about your invitations and about the things that you're doing with your social life and your social circle? If you guys are starting to see where your social lifestyle and your social circle comes into play, to not only avoid just being in constant flash judgment situations, but be in warm environments where you're seeing people a lot, you're seeing people multiple times, people are seeing you in different lights and seeing different sides to your personality, you obviously need to be fun. And that's not just about what you're saying, it's about what you're actually physically doing, where you're traveling, who you're hanging out with, where you're allowed to be into, and who you can bring with you. Dude, I don't know if you're noticing, but that's like what I've been trying to tell you guys the whole time.
Are the most important attribute, with the amount of positive responses and level of physical attractiveness having an astonishingly large correlation coefficient of 0.801. For comparison, the correlation coefficient between IQ and academic performance is 0.54. Think about that for a second. For those wondering, online dating shows an even stronger correlation, with the data from OkCupid showing a 0.92 correlation coefficient between physical attractiveness and the perceived attractiveness of a profile. Confirming what a lot of men have recently begun to realize: physical attractiveness is just as important to women as it is for men. Women just don't admit it.
Music is so fucking
Another
intense.
thing I think most people aren't aware of is the effect of attractiveness is exponential. The 2011 study, What Makes People Click, Mate Preferences in Online Dating, looked at various traits to see what makes people attracted to each other. The study separated the 22,000 participants' facial attractiveness into deciles of attractiveness, with the top 10% getting separated into two groups, giving the top 5% their own group. To no one's surprise, the study found attractive people were significantly more likely to receive messages and match requests, but the distribution was eye-opening. We see a steady climb in matches and messages as participants get more attractive, until we get to the top 5%. Miles above the rest, the top 5% of men dominate in online dating, seen as more than twice as desirable as the 90th percentile man. Data released from OkCupid touts similar, if not even more telling results, showing the exponential effects of physical attractiveness. Each percentile makes a bigger and bigger difference the closer you get to the top. I don't want the takeaway from this video to be that looks are the only thing that matter, because they're not. Another large contributor to a man's attraction.
Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say. Anyways, is all we're looking at is a like basically same scenario as a speed dating event, where you're going to be in a flash judgment, flash character. Like your character doesn't get taken into play. Your language patterns, your behavior, your environmental status. Like they're looking at a picture. That's all they're going off of. They're not really reading your bios, and that's not doing anything for her.
Attractiveness is his social status. If we look again at the What Makes You Click study, we can see a large contributor to a man's perceived attractiveness is his occupation. Irregardless of a man's individual income, the industry he worked in had a large impact on if women attempted to match with him. This is a chart showing the attractiveness of different industries men in the study worked in, and my fuzzy best estimates of the average salary in those industries. As you can see, there's a correlation between the average salary in the industry and the attractiveness of it, but it's certainly not a one-to-one. Industries like computer engineering, science, government, politics, and financial accounting make a large amount of money, but don't give the men in them much of an attractiveness boost. Industries like firefighting, law enforcement, and military don't make a ton of money, but give the men in them large boosts in their attractiveness. And over here, less attractive than being unemployed are service, hospitality, and labor. And up here, in the corner...
Yeah, it's lawyers for whatever reason. I already knew that one. What they should have done on this chart is they should have put the female perspective on what guys think is attractive, because what you would have probably noticed is that the dots would have all been down in the far left corner, because it wouldn't have really made a difference or mattered too much in attractiveness. There may have been like the outlier, and that would have been somebody in probably childcare, like someone that can take care of children really well or be very like caring and supportive. That would probably have been rated more highly, would be my guess. But all this is telling you guys is that, again, another one of these variables being brought into play here. This is another chart proving that women are judging attractiveness not just on physical appearance, but on other different components as well. So here's the difference, right? Is you could probably show a girl a picture of a guy to a bunch of girls, they'd give him an average rating. And then they'd give a picture of a guy that's a lawyer, same guy, to a bunch of different girls, and his rating, his physical attractiveness rating would be fucking higher. You see what I'm saying? So it's like what they're thinking in their head in terms of how they're judging it is also based off the other information that they know about the guy subconsciously. So the less information that they have, the more that it is just going to be a default bias to like, yeah, he's not good looking enough.
The highest paid and most attractive career option for men, legal/attorney. Maybe your parents were right about considering law school. Something I've heard discussed a lot over the last few years is how men get better with age while women only get less desirable. And while the former is true, the latter isn't. This is a chart showing the age at which men and women are most desirable to each other at every age. The thing that sticks out the most is that men's preferences don't really change as they age, always being the most interested in women 20 to 22. I think we all knew that though. Something I don't think most men realize is that the prime demographic they're interested in, 20 to 22-year-old women, are most interested in 21 to 25-year-old guys. That's your peak, guys. It's not your early 30s, and it's certainly not 38. It is worth noting that as a man, you'll receive the most attention from women in general between the ages of 25 to 30. This essentially means men have two primes. A first prime from the ages of 21 to 25, when prime women, 20 to 23, are most attracted to you. And a second prime from ages 25 to 30, when you get the most attention from women overall. I think it's also worth pointing out that even women start wanting to date a little younger as they get older.
Yeah, so this whole age thing actually depends on a whole lot of other stuff too. Obviously, you're going to be able to see averages through the general and mass population, but if you're changing and growing, then the mass population isn't going to. You're not going to be in that part of that statistic. So I can tell you anecdotally at 31 years old that this is like by far I'm in a better position than I've ever been in my life. So at 21 years old, I didn't have nearly the amount of options. So saying that that's your peak is like ridiculous. And even 25 to 30, what actually matters more is the trajectory you're on, how valuable you're becoming, and your peak is really when you peak, right? It's not like I wouldn't even pay attention to that chart. It's like, when did you peak? And that's actually even like a decision that you can make too. So I wouldn't even worry about that.
Dating truly is a younger man's game, and despite men seeming to age better in women's eyes than women do in men's eyes, Father Time continues to stay undefeated. Now, there's one more thing in the What Makes You Click study I want to show you. When reading through the study, I found this. The researchers concluded that both men and women's height preferences depend on their own height. Basically, being shorter than a woman will on average make you be seen as significantly less attractive than a man of the same height as her, and in a whole nother category than men taller than her. I don't think this is too surprising, but here's something I think will be. Yes, this is men's height preferences for women. Outside of being reversed, men prefer women shorter than themselves, men's height preferences for women are nearly identical to women's height preferences for men, which makes sense when you think about it. Would you want to date?
Yeah. So if you're a short guy, date short girls. If you're 5'5", date girls that are 5'1". If you're 6'2", date girls that are 5'7". Guys, don't get too caught up in all of the stuff to do with looks. All this is proving to you is that there's multiple things that women make decisions on who they date based off of. And if you're relying on looks alone, then you are definitely going to be very, very fucked. If you're not relying on looks alone and you're giving opportunities to download more packets of information to her brain about who you are, what you stand for, the value that you have, then that becomes less and less and less of a key factor. As you can see, things like fun, social lifestyle, friends, status, environments, and all those different things. Guys, what you need to be focusing on, if you're not a 10 out of 10 good looking, if you're 10 out of 10 good looking, just, go have fun. But if you're not, you need to be leveling up in all these other areas of your life, specifically your lifestyle and your social circle, your fun, your friendships, the stuff that you do on the weekends, what you get invited to. I'm here to help you guys out with that. Without further ado, I'm going to now end this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace out. Peace out for real this time.